Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 7 of the podcast. So we're thrilled to have you with us. Before we dive into today's topics, though, I have a few interesting updates to share. First, you might notice we now have video. I'm actually using my phone's camera because it offers much better quality than my old webcam did. Secondly, we've upgraded our podcast setup, so you can expect better sound quality and some exciting new sound effects. Thank you. And lastly, I'm delighted to announce a milestone. We've reached 10 subscribers. So your support means the world to me. Thank you for hanging in there with me as we continue to grow. Just look out for some more educational videos and a stronger social media presence. I'm starting to, I actually already started a TikTok channel. Not anything put on it yet, but we're working on it. I've got loads of plans, so please stay tuned for new links and updates. I'll be putting those up shortly. And now let's get into today's episode. So we'll be discussing DOGE, Medicare cuts, and their potential impact on EMS. Stay tuned. So before we dive into today's episode, please note that the views expressed by myself and my guests that I might have are solely our own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions held by our employers or affiliated organizations. This is the Rig Report. So unless you've been living under a rock for the past 3 months, you've probably heard about DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency. This initiative is led by none other than Elon Musk, the billionaire known for his innovative ventures. Billionaire 369 times over, I might add. Musk claims that his goal is to identify and eliminate government waste and fraud. And according to some reports, he's already made significant strides. He appears to have the full support of President Trump in his endeavors. So let me pause here just a minute and give a quick heads up to you. As I've mentioned before, I think I have, if not in a previous podcast, and if I haven't, I'm saying it now. My goal with this platform has never been to become political. There's several reasons for this. For one of the biggest being the fact that the current state of discourse in 2025, somehow we've lost the ability to disagree and still have an intelligent, mature conversation, while remaining friends. So, or even civil sometimes for that matter, the whole cancel culture thing. And it seems if someone disagrees with us, we instantly feel the need to dislike or hate them and bash them on social media or whatever other platform that we can yell from the rooftops. But, I'm just going to tell you, as I've aged, I've kind of I have adopted this. I will show you the same respect and kindness I would anyone else. If you can't be mature or intelligent enough to have a conversation with me, that problem is not mine, it's yours. So you might disagree with me, and that's okay. All I ask is that you keep an open mind. And that's all anyone can ask, I suppose. So real quick, I'm going to show a short clip of what Elon Musk has said about Medicare, and we'll get a little further into this. So let me pull that up real fast.
Elon Musk with one of his biggest revelations yet in trying to cut government waste and eliminate fraud. He wrote, "I am 100% certain that the magnitude of the fraud in federal entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, welfare, disability exceeds the combined sum of every private scam you've ever heard by far. The Social Security database is not deduplicated, meaning you can have the same Social Security number many times over, which further enables massive fraud. Your tax dollars are being stolen."
Okay, so that clip was from the National Desk YouTube channel. And it's essentially Elon Musk saying that your tax dollars are being stolen. It's one of the biggest fraudulent things that have happened to date. So there's a couple of things that we need to dive into here. So first off, um, we heard during Trump's campaign, and since Doge was a thing, we've heard from Republicans that they're not wanting, their goal is not to touch Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. They're not going to touch any of that. But now what we're seeing is something different. And hold on, my Republican friends, don't get upset just yet, because I'm not bashing anyone just yet. I'm just merely stating facts. And that's things that can be confirmed by many sound bites, interviews with President Trump and Republicans and representatives and all of that. So I'm just speaking the truth. Um, Look it up on YouTube if you want. Many times they said they're not going to touch any of this stuff, but here we are. Now, if I could offer my humble opinion, what I think has happened is once Doge got access to all this information and they started their investigations, they kind of bit off more than they could chew. They found things that went deeper and further than they ever dreamed. So now they're kind of having to walk back some of their promises, and they're following where the investigation leads. So yes, there were statements made that they're not going to touch any of that stuff, and now they're kind of having to, open mouth insert foot kind of thing. One of the biggest outcries from the opponents of Doge and Elon Musk have been things like he's just a rich businessman and he's not an elected official. He's not any official government or working in any official government capacity. And he has too much access. His researchers have access to bank accounts and things like that. And people are afraid because this outside person has access to banking information. So, I kind of, if I'm totally honest, it sets kind of an interesting precedent. Um, you know, if the wrong people were to come in and do those kind of things, they could definitely weaponize this whole thing towards their opponents, political or private citizens, even if they wanted. So it's kind of a scary precedent in a way. I mean, if we're being honest. However, because it's Elon Musk, I just want to put this into perspective for you. The man he's worth $369 billion. And just to put that in perspective, if you were able to have a job since essentially the birth of Jesus for the last 2,000 and some years, you could have literally made $175 million a year and still not have the amount of money that Elon Musk has. That's just insanity. So I seriously doubt that the man is worried about your $20.14 that's in your bank account. I mean, that's just my opinion. So all this is fine, well, and good, but how does it affect EMS? Okay, so if they were to um, begin cutting from Medicare, because they have stated something like 880 million over the next 10 years is what has to be cut from their spending budget, and I mean, that's a huge chunk of change. And I guess first we have to talk about what all Medicare and Medicaid do. And Medicare is the one that's actually 880 million. I forget what Medicaid actually was, but 880 million over the next 10 years. Um, so basically, Medicare deals with things like they pay for your doctor's appointments, they pay for medical care, whether that be surgery, procedures, whatever. They cover a broad range of things. And then also Social Security, of course, for the older folks that have worked all their lives. And people are concerned, and I totally understand that, because while there might be fraud going on there, there's also the fact that whatever you do is going to negatively impact the amount of money that these people that are depending on this service are going to get. So, it's a scary thought, especially, as I'm I'm getting older, I want Social Security to be able to lean on when I get that age. I want to be able to have something that will protect me in my older age. So, I understand the concern, especially as people who are already on it. Now, this is where this whole thing gets a whole lot more complicated. There's so many more moving parts than you think. Um, and what I think is going on is they've had this good plan, and any good plan, good or bad, let's just put it that way. Any plan, it's hard to see what in the long run is going to happen, all the little fine details. Like, it's pretty easy to sit down and plan something, but once it starts in motion, what's going to happen at the end goal of this? And sometimes that can be hard to have foresight, to determine what's going to happen. And I think that's kind of what's going on. We've followed this investigation, we found fraud. Now, what are we going to do about it? And nobody's offered a really good explanation as to what the plan actually is. All we know is that we need to cut things. We haven't really been told what programs for sure that's going to be cut, how the money will be divided, or what's going to happen. So this is directly um, going to involve EMS, because a lot of our payments, while some comes from private insurance, most of it comes from Medicare. Um, we get reimbursements from Medicare for things like just going to your house and picking you up and taking you to the ER. So that's going to have a pretty big impact on our reimbursement rates. And it's a system that's already strained. Like, you're extremely lucky as an agency if you're actually making 60% of what you actually bill. So the way, I guess we need to dive in a little bit to how this works. And admittedly, I've been out of the private service game for a while, where I was exposed to those billing practices and all of that. But a few years ago, BLS, meaning basic life support, if you're a public non EMS person, listen to this podcast. BLS means basic life support. In other words, anything from essentially AEMT, EMT, or whatever. Um, which, by the way, insert my opinion here. I think ALS or AEMT should be counted as ALS because, they do some ALS skills. So why not bill for it? Anyhow, that's neither here nor there. So, AEMT or below is considered a basic life support or BLS call. And what that means is they're able to do the very basic amount of things for stabilization and care. So that could be something like, taking your vital signs, or, a few very basic practices. In the ambulance service world, they'll come and pick you up from your house, pick you up from the nursing home, what have you, take you to an appointment and back home. Or they'll, um, take you in for a procedure and then come back and pick you up, take you back home. On the 911 side, that's just essentially running the call, coming to your house, taking you to the hospital. So a BLS pickup fee was something like $250 to $300 flat rate. That's what you're able to bill under CMS or Medicare guidelines. And we'll talk a little bit more about CMS here in a minute. And then on top of that, you're able to bill so much per mile. And it's not a lot. It's not a huge amount what they can bill. And forgive me because I don't remember right off the top of my head, but it seems like it's something about $12 or $15 a mile or something like that. That they're able to bill for per mile. Now, it goes up if it's considered rural miles. So, because they have more wear and tear on their ambulances and curvier roads and rougher terrain, they will give you a little bit higher rate for going through rural areas. Okay. When you consider, and there's people out there, they fuss and complain about ambulance bills. You know what? I heard one actually. In fact, I heard one yesterday when I was on duty. A random lady in Walmart approached me and was just making conversation, and she goes, "I like you guys," and I guess I give her kind of a puzzled look, and she's like, "I don't like the other ones," and she was referring to a private service in the area, and she was like, "They billed me $100, so many $100 to take me from home to, or my husband home from home to the ER." But here's the cold hard facts. Okay, nobody likes paying bills. I don't like paying bills. I get it. However, these ambulances do not run on hopes and dreams and rainbows and unicorns. It takes fuel. Back in the day, they thought that diesels were more fuel efficient and able to pull around those giant heavy boxes, so every ambulance was diesel. Now since we've gotten better at making gasoline ambulances and engines more fuel efficient, a lot of them are switching back to gas. But it still takes fuel to run these things. I mean, they don't run off of nothing. So you take that into account, and I can promise you these ambulances get a whole lot more miles and wear and tear than your little Honda that's sitting in your driveway or your little hybrid. Whenever we need tires, instead of the $800 or $1,000 that you might pay, we're upwards of two, three, maybe $4 grand just to replace a set of tires. Not to mention the supplies. Have you priced out medical supplies lately? They're insane for a box of Valium, which is something we used to give a lot for seizures. Valium is like $1,000 for 5 vials. It's insanity. So we have to bill to stay in business essentially, and then not to mention the providers. So I went to school an equivalent of something like 2.5 years to get where I'm at now. When you consider EMT, paramedic, and all the training certifications that I have, that's like 2.5 years of school. That wasn't cheap. I mean, the paramedic program alone was something like 8 to 10 grand that I had to pay largely out of pocket. And you want me to work for nothing? I mean, yes, you're going to get a bill because we have to. Nobody is supporting us, and we have to bill you. Now, ALS, I mentioned BLS earlier. ALS level calls are higher, and there's actually two different levels. ALS level 1 is essentially a cardiac monitor and an IV or a medication. ALS level 2, according to CMS, is pretty much a cardiac monitor and ventilator, cardiac monitor and two medications given, or any kind of defib therapy, or essentially cardiac electrical therapy. That's basically what that means. So, if you're a 911 agency or you're responding to calls for service, and you show up and you give, it's an intermediate or paramedic is considered ALS, able to bill ALS, and you do those procedures the aforementioned procedures, then you're able to bill an ALS rate. So the flat rate for an ALS pickup is a little bit more. From, again, been out of it for a while. It's something like $400 or $500 that you can charge flat pickup rate, and then the mileage fee on top of that. So if you're a private service and you're doing, or you're one of those 911 services that dabbles in the convalescent side or the transfer side, it can be much larger. They can bill for critical care, essentially. Some places can, and for things like ventilators, IV pumps, all that stuff, they'll let you do some of that. But people get the wrong idea. They look at EMS like it's our fault because we bill so much. Now, like my agency, we do something called soft billing. We'll accept what the insurance will pay, but we'll bill you for the what um, remaining balance. So we'll take whatever they pay, and then you get a bill for the rest. Now, if you express to our billing company, because we have a third party billing company, we don't do it in house. If you express to them that you can't pay the bill, then they just write it off. And that's why, the experience that I was talking about earlier, the exchange with that individual, it that's why they liked us, I suppose. And a lot of agencies do soft bill. But the important thing to remember is it's not our fault as EMS. It's not like we're out to get you. It's funny because people complain about a bill that's $400 or $500, but then you don't take into account what the hospital bill is going to be. The ER is going to charge you through the nose, and if you have to go by helicopter, if you medevaced out somewhere, those bills can be somewhere like upwards of 30, 40, $50,000 for them to take you by helicopter. So in comparison, we're actually a bargain. Just a thought. Anyway, so um yeah, our billing is a whole lot less than what it could be. But instead of attacking us and saying it's our fault, the people who govern us is CMS and Medicare, because that's who pays the bills. CMS is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They're the people who literally set the guidelines and standards and limitations on what we're able to bill. You go into the ER, they can itemize. They can actually charge you with a giant markup, I might add, for every single little piece of equipment they use. Now, albeit what I'm about to tell you is from about 2007, 2008 timeline, so it's gone way up since then. I was in an accident. I actually tripped and fell on my front porch of all things and fell through a window, and I split my hand open. And I don't know if you can really see it there really good, but got a pretty nasty scar. Had to have about 10 stitches in my hand because the glass cut me open. When I got an itemized bill from the ER, I was charged 200 and some change dollars for a tetanus shot. I was charged an additional 200 and some dollars for that nurse to use her skills to give me the shot. A bottle of basically saline or irrigation water, about 1,000 milliliter bottle, was used to irrigate the wound. They charged like $80 for that, when at the time you could buy them for about $5 a piece. So, I mean, it went on, and it was a very expensive bill just to go to the ER. We can't itemize. So, whatever supplies we use on you to take you to the ER is just lost. We can't bill and recoup the money we've used for that. So essentially, we're just trying to break even. Now, where DOGE and all this Medicare cut and everything will really affect, Medicare already has something in place to approve or deny claims. So, for a while, especially in the private service, when I would do my charting, I would have to give a valid reason why you had to go by stretcher. Now, we're not, obviously, and I wouldn't want to, we're not allowed to lie. That's fraud, of course. So we can't write in our call sheet that you absolutely needed stretcher transport when you really didn't. If you walked to the stretcher, then they say, well, there's no reason for you to take an ambulance. You should have went by car. So we're not going to pay for it. So if you want to attack someone, go after CMS. CMS are the people that literally set the standard by which we're able to bill. They also set the standard by how much and what they pay. So if your bill wasn't covered by Medicare, that's not my fault or my agency's fault. It's none of these agencies' faults out here. It's literally the fault of CMS and Medicare. They've denied your claim for some reason or another. They've also limited what they will pay. And that's not an EMS issue. That is a straight from CMS problem. So if you want to attack someone, go to them. Now, where this is really going to affect when they start cutting these things, and we've already seen it, they see the writing on the wall. And for the last, I don't know, year and a half that I've worked at my current agency, there have been very few call sheets returned by the billing department saying that they couldn't be billed for one reason or another. And it's usually because of a mistake, a decent sized mistake by the provider when they wrote something. But we've had very few returned. Within the last 2 or 3 months, we've had more returned in that time frame than we've had the whole time that I've been there. And a lot of it is because we can't determine that this patient really needed to go by ambulance. So they're feeling the pressure. It's already happening. So more and more of these claims are going to get denied. The more pressure that's put on them and the more money that's clawed back away from them. So again, like I said earlier, this is where things get a whole lot more complicated, okay? It's not as simple as just paying for these things. There is more stuff that's going on besides EMS and hospital and all that kind of thing, because we're paying for prescriptions. Okay, Medicare pays for your prescriptions. How much has prescriptions went up over the last few years? Like crazy percentages. Diabetic meds. Diabetic meds skyrocketed. Medicare has to pay for those. Whose fault is it really? I mean, pharmaceutical companies make multi-billion dollars a year, yet we're blaming Medicare, Medicaid, and everybody else. They're draining the system with their insane prices. And let's just talk about doctors, okay? Let's say Joe Blow, Joe here, notices a lump in his throat, okay? He doesn't really know anything about it, so he goes to his PCP to find out what's going on. The PCP does the exam, pulls a few labs in his office, and says, well, I think it's a thyroid nodule, but I can't tell for sure. We need imaging. So I'm going to send you to the hospital in a week or two. You make an appointment. It's going to be a week or two. You go up there, get an ultrasound, and then we'll find out where to go from there. So you have to, meanwhile, you wait 2 weeks. You go to the local ER or wherever you go, get your imaging done, and then you have to make another appointment to go see your PCP to read the results. Okay, so we've paid for an initial doctor's visit. Medicare has. Medicare has now paid for your appointment to get imaging done and your lab work. And then you have to make yet another appointment to go see this doctor again for them to read the results. Okay, so that happens. Well, I couldn't really tell that much about it with the ultrasound. So what I'm going to do with your lab results and all that stuff, I'm going to send you to a specialist, an endocrinologist, let's say. So they make an appointment, and it might be 6 months down the road before you even get in to see this endocrinologist. So 6 months gets here, and you go to that guy. That guy says, or that doctor says, I really haven't had time to review your case. I'm still trying to get your records together. So I tell you what, I'm going to send you for an MRI, and then we'll put all the results together, and then we'll figure out what's going on. So you wait another few weeks. Meanwhile, Medicare's paying for all those appointments. They're paying for all those tests. And then you finally come back to the specialist, and the specialist says, okay, this is the course of action that we're going to take. And then they finally schedule you for a procedure or whatever you're going to have to do, or the medication to take care of the problem. So we're like 3, 4, 5 appointments in, thousands of dollars paid on one patient by Medicare, all when some of this stuff could have been consolidated, or the PCP could have immediately noticed that this is a problem and sent you early. It's many more moving parts than people realize, or that the media is even saying. So you got to consider all these things. Doctors are in an uproar because of the potential of over a 2% decrease in their Medicare payments for what they're doing. And while I understand it, I mean, you probably got into being a doctor to help people and because of the money, because they make good money. I mean, let's just be honest. but they're mad now because they're going to get a decrease in payments. I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand it, but be more efficient. You know, maybe you may not have this problem with your doctors in your area, but it's certainly prevalent here. I mean, meanwhile, while the money is getting poured into this from Medicare and all these extra appointments, and it seems like you got to show up and pay something every time, you could be waiting up to a year before you even get treated for what the problem is. So, I mean, it's very complicated and it's very broken. So it's easy to say that there's fraud, and we know that there's fraud, but pinpointing the exact places where the fraud is and what we're going to do about it and how that affects payments is remains to be seen. There's going to be a whole lot more research, I'm sure, and investigation to get there. Um, but you have to consider these things. I mean, these are all things that we have to realize that it's not as simple as people make it out to be. So, what can we do as EMS people, or if you're out there in the public and not EMS related, what can we do to help this situation along? So, one of the biggest things we're going to have to do as providers is stay vigilant, obviously. In Virginia, not long ago, there was a meeting basically between any of the representatives of different regions of EMS or of Virginia um, could come in and meet with like the representatives of the state, and they had a discussion or a dialogue about how this is going to affect things, how Medicaid and Medicare payments were going to change, and like a plan. And essentially, it was EMS's time to be heard, and that's something we're going to have to get involved. If you're an EMS provider, this is going to affect you. Period. I mean, there's no avoiding it. Somehow, it's going to affect you because these small, tiny rural departments that are relying on that the billing return to supplement what you're getting from your city or county, this is going to be super important to you because if something happens to Medicare and you lose that funding, a lot of these small agencies are not going to have a choice but to shutter their doors. Now, on the flip side of that, what I don't and what would not be beneficial is to buy into this crap, which is exactly what it is, that the media is trying to throw out there and get everybody in a panic. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. We can't contribute to that because that's just going to make things worse. In reality, when you think about it, yeah, we've had broken systems before, but EMS, while some places don't call EMS essential, it is essential. So when those systems begin to fail, there's going to be a huge uproar about it. You know how many like bottom feeding lawyers are just waiting and like drooling, waiting on an opportunity to go after this administration if something like this happens? I mean, all we have to do, and just being honest here, look at the past things with Trump. That is probably the most um, attacked and litigated president we've ever had. And you think the failure of an EMS system would go unnoticed? Absolutely not. Something will happen long before the system collapses. So I don't think you have any worry there. The issue is going to be what will happen to these tiny departments in your small rural towns before it is fixed. So certainly we have to be vigilant, and any opportunity we get to make our voices be heard, we need to do that. Because we are going to have to, and there's not any just one thing that's going to fix this. It's a broader issue, as I've demonstrated. There's so many moving parts, but we can't take away the funding from EMS. That's going to be a super major issue. Okay, so as EMS providers, and as if you're part of the public out there, listen to this. Every opportunity you get to speak on behalf or in favor of EMS and their reimbursement, that's what we need to do. We need to change what CMS will allow us to bill and what they will allow Medicare to cover. That's the big issue because we can't keep I know people are hurting right now. We can't keep nailing them with bills and try to go after them and take them to collections because it's not going to do any good. And it's just going to harm the people we were supposed to be helping. So the issue is we need to change what Medicare and CMS and all these other insurances will cover. That's the problem. So it's a broad issue. And certainly we can't solve it in one podcast. But more or less, I just wanted to make you aware and just let people know this is more. There's more moving parts than the media is reporting, than people are talking about. There's so many issues here. So if you enjoyed the content, let me know with like and follow. Make sure you click if you're on YouTube, click the little notification bell. If you're on Spotify, follow my uh, podcast. And in the future, we'll be doing a whole lot more content. And I'm working on some social media accounts, as I said at the first of this. And one of the new videos that I'm working on right now, which is centered on public education, is talking about the differences between public and private EMS agencies. It's one of the biggest misunderstandings or misconceptions that I run into in the field. People don't really understand the difference between the two. So keep watching for that. And thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you the next time.